Alright class, today we're going to do hyperbolas. Again, I put a lot of information on the front screen. I want you guys to scroll down so you can see it all. Maybe pause the screen and write down as much as you can. Real quick, I'll talk about a few things. The general form is very similar to an ellipse, except for there's a minus sign instead of a plus sign between the two pieces. So think ellipse has the plus, hyperbola has the minus when you're dealing with the general equation. The first piece tells you which way it's opening. The positive piece, if it's x, the vertices are in the x direction, so it moves and opens left and right. If it's y, the vertices are in the y direction and it opens up or down. It's not necessarily the biggest piece now. So I said that there for vertices. You find everything like an ellipse. For the foci though, the distance from the center to the foci is found by this equation now, which is kind of like Pythagorean's theorem. It's rx squared plus ry squared. So remember, in an ellipse, the main equation was a plus and there was a minus sign in the f equation. For hyperbola, there's a minus sign in the equation, but there's a plus sign in the focus equation. Now, to make it, you'll dot out a box, draw asymptote lines through the corners of the box, so you'll make like an X. The transverse axis is the one that goes through the vertices, and if I want the asymptote equations, we're going to use that. So I know that's a lot, so again, pause it to write everything down. I'm going to begin with what's up here. Okay, we're going to do this one. So, first thing I note is I have a center at 3, 4. So I'm going to plot that. I then note that Rx is 4 and Ry is 5. So Rx is 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ry is 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, normally for an ellipse you would draw a circle. But for this we're going to just box this out. You just go to the corners, and we're dotting everything because this is not the hyperbola yet. This is just the box. That'll help us shape our hyperbola. So there's my box based on my 4 things. Now the actual vertices in this case are the ones in the x direction because that's the thing that's positive. It's the first thing listed. So my vertices, it's not necessarily the farther away one like the ellipse. That's the only difference here. So it's negative 1, 4, and we have 7, 4. Now here's how you draw a hyperbola. You see these corners? We're going to make a line that goes through the center and through the corner. Again, we're dashing because these are not the actual hyperbolas yet. We'll get there in a second. Hope I shouldn't have moved over too much so you guys can still see the words. So those are called the asymptote lines. You should note that the slope of this line is up 5 and over 4, which is why it's the Ry over Rx, and it's plus or minus because there are 2 lines, one with a positive slope and one with a negative slope. This is basically point slope form for the asymptote equation. So if you really wanted to, we would say our asymptotes have the equation y minus 4, that's right from the equation, equals plus or minus 5/4 x minus 3, because that's the center of that. So those are our asymptote equations. To graph the hyperbola, we're basically there to graph it now. We'll graph it in a different color. You start at the vertice, these are the 2 vertices, I'll darken them, and you kind of go up towards the asymptote line. They'll kind of look like parabolas, but sideways in this case, and there's 2 of them. So the hyperbola is actually the thing in the purple here. That's the only thing that's really the graph here. Alright, so the only other thing I need is where are my foci. So let's find that length. Remember, in this case, f squared equals 4 squared plus 5 squared. So we get 25 and 16, which should be 41, I believe. So f is equal to the square root of 41, which is a little more than 6, less than 7. And if we check that, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, something out there. And then 4, 5, 6, something out there. Those would be my foci. Notice that the foci are further away. They're like flipped out now. So that means that to get to those points, it's just like doing the focus for the ellipse. You have to add it in the direction you're going. So we're at x equals 3. We want to add and subtract root 41. So the foci are at 3 plus or minus root 41, and then we're still at a height or a y of 4. I feel like I'm almost done. I want to list what the transverse axis is. That would be this here. Going through it, that's a line y equals 4. So transverse y equals 4. Now there's another axis called the conjugate axis, which is the one that goes through the non-vertices. So I'll just write that out so you guys can see that. I didn't write it in the description, but the conjugate axis is x equals 3. Goes through the center but not through the vertices. Okay, so that is everything for a hyperbola. Again, there was a little bit of new stuff, the asymptote equation, these axes, but getting the vertices are the same. The f equation changed, but then you move over the same way. So similarities. Alright, let's do a couple more real quick. So complete the square and find all pertinent information. So the center for this is, again, be careful for this. This is in the opposite order, but it's still the center goes with x first and then y. The transverse axis will go through the vertices. I'll deal with that later. Let's just start graphing this. 2, -1 is here. Then we are going to have our x is actually 4, our y is 3. So our x is 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. We make our box because that's what we do. Instead of an ellipse is what we're doing. Box that out. Make our asymptote lines. And make another one. Do the corners. Okay, this time the y is first. So this is going to open up and down. So right away I'm going to just draw this. The y are the vertices. So here, up here is one of the vertices, and there's the other one. So to draw this, we kind of go towards the asymptote lines. That is my hyperbola, the purple. Okay? So now we can fill out some of the other things we just got. We got the vertices. The vertices are the 2 dots in the y, so it'd be 2, 2, and 2, -4. The transverse axis is the one that goes through the points, so that would be this line. That's a vertical line going through x equals 2. And the asymptote equation, you can write that here. This is just, you take the y piece first from your center. The slope is ry over rx, so plus or minus 3/4, and then it's x minus 2. That will be both lines, both of those red lines. And finally the foci we have to find. So f squared equals 4 squared plus 3 squared. Oh, I like this one. This is going to be 16 plus 9 is 25. So that means f is 5 away in the direction of the vertices. Same thing, it's in the direction of the vertices. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's a focus there and a focus there. So we would say my foci, and you can actually just tell me the points. You don't have to do the plus or minus thing here. It's 2, 4, and 2, -6 for the foci. Okay, so those are all the pieces that we need. Foci, asymptote equation, vertices, the transverse axis. Now if I said what's the conjugate axis, you would draw the horizontal line this time. You said y equals -1 and center. Alright, we got one more. Oh, it's our favorite thing, completing the square. Okay, I left some room to do this. Now you have to be careful. We talked about this before. When you factor out, actually let me group these first. There's a minus 50y squared, minus 100y equals plus 1 equals 50. Okay, so when you factor out the lead coefficient, you have to be careful that you are also factoring out the negative sign for this second one. So the first one's the same as it always is. X squared minus, this becomes 10x plus blank. Then I'm taking a minus 50 out. When I take a minus 50 out, this becomes a positive y squared. This becomes a positive, because that had a minus, 2y. So be careful with that. Alright, and now we're going to complete the square. I'm going to add half of 5, well, half of 10 is negative 5, and then squared is 25. So what we have to do here, though, is add whatever 18 times 25 is. Was that 450? I believe it's 450. Yeah. So because we have 18 times 25, we have 450. So this is going to be a plus 450. And then here, we have half of 2 is 1, squared is 1. However, we added a negative 50 over here, so we have to subtract 50. So, we end up with this. 18x minus 5 quantity squared minus 50 y plus 1 squared equals 450. And then just like an ellipse, we have to divide by 450 to get it to 1. Okay, well we know 18 divided by 450 is 25. So we get our final equation to be this over 25 minus, I believe that's just 9. 50 divided, yeah, because 50 and 45. So this would just be y plus 1 squared over 9 equals 1. And there is my new ellipse equation. Now from that, it's just like the one we did before, we are going to get all our pieces. The center is the x piece, which is 5. The y piece is negative 1. So 5, negative 1 is right there. This is not going to fit, I think, on my graph. Yeah, this is not going to fit, but that's okay. Our x equals 5. Our y equals 3. So yeah, this will not work. Let's change all these numbers so that they go up by 2s. I know that's going to be confusing for some of you guys. No, you know what, let's just leave it like here. I'll just pretend. So 5 is out there, 5 is there. Negative, or 3 is up 3, down 3. Actually, we don't really need the x anyway. We just need to box it. So the box is going to go way out there. Because the vertices, so the hyperbola, I'm going to move over here and kind of just, yours is going to go off your paper. I'm apologizing for that. So the center is where it is. The vertices are in the x direction. Oh no, the vertices are in the x direction because the x is the first piece. So I need this point and this point. Well, if you move 5 each way, it's 0, negative 1, and 10, negative 1. Okay, I'm running out of time too. I just realized this has been a long video. I'm going to quickly draw this. It'll be out here and here because the vertices are there. The transverse axis goes through those, so it's y equals negative 1. The asymptote equation is the y piece first from your center equals plus or minus ry over rx, because slope is y over x, and then x minus 5. The foci, we have to do that equation real quick. F squared equals 3 squared plus 5 squared. So we get 9 plus 25 is 34. So we're moving root 34 in the x direction. So my foci are, the x was at 5. So 5 plus or minus root 34, comma, negative 1. Okay. Again, I know I went quick. I was running out of time because you only got 15 minutes for this. So anyway, that is a hyperbola. Those are the pieces. It's similar to an ellipse in terms of what you do, but you have a lot more work to do afterwards to get those missing things. So, alright, I will not see you guys tomorrow. You guys will have to watch the video tomorrow. I will see you shortly, though.